Tonight, hundreds of miles south of the border in Mexico, a caravan of migrants chanting, "We are not criminals," is rushing to make it to the U.S.-Mexico border before the Trump administration is sworn in. Many carrying their belongings in plastic bags and on their backs, and already starting to voice their fears about not being able to cross into the United States come January. "I think it will be much more complicated now," says this man who's traveling from Venezuela. "Now we are thinking about finding a way to get through before Trump takes the presidency." DHS officials telling NBC News that they have not yet seen a surge in migrants heading to the United States, but that they want CBP and ICE officials to be prepared.
Immigration. To start, let's ask ourselves, what is immigration? The definition of immigration from Merriam-Webster states it is an act or instance of immigrating, or, specifically, to travel into a country for the purpose of permanent residence there. Why is immigration still relevant today? It is relevant since this is still a movement that is going on even in today's modern times. But first, let's start from the time when this started during World War II and the lead to today's immigration. On February 19, 1942, shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which delegated to military commanders the power to relocate persons of Japanese ancestry living in the United States. These zones were created in California, Washington, Oregon, and other states, where a majority of the population of Japanese Americans were located. This relocation was from 1942 to 1945, a long-lasting, impactful moment where many Japanese Americans feared and had their civil rights violated. Camps, such as this one, was located in Los Angeles, California, where many of Japanese Americans were placed. As you can see here, many were taken from their homes and moved to these camps, waiting and not knowing what would come next for them or what the future was holding. So many people had little knowledge of why they were moving, such as 12-year-old Florence Miho Nakamura in her memoirs, where she states, "As we got off the bus, we found ourselves in a large area amidst a sea of friendly Japanese faces." She was sent to the Tan Foreign Assembly Center. She also then states that she didn't know where we were, as many children and adolescents who were in these camps knew why or where they were. Many Japanese Americans' homes were also seized and some destroyed during this time, and some having nothing to come back to after this movement. But cases such as Korematsu versus the U.S., which when Fred Korematsu, who was a Japanese American citizen living in California, refused to comply with the order of which having to be sent to these camps, in which he was arrested and convicted. Here's a small video on his case.
Fred Korematsu was best known as the Japanese American who unsuccessfully challenged the constitutionality of the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. 40 years after the United States Supreme Court decided his case, another court revisited the U.S. government's treatment of Korematsu in Korematsu versus United States. In 1941, the U.S. declared war on Japan. The President issued Executive Order 9066, which gave the Secretary of War the power to designate military zones and keep people out of those areas. Congress made it a crime to ignore an order to leave a military zone. A portion of the West Coast was designated Military Area Number 1. Then an order excluded those of Japanese ancestry from living there unless they were in assembly centers. Fred Korematsu's ancestors were Japanese. He lived in Zone 1, but didn't report to an assembly center. Korematsu was convicted of breaking federal law, which was upheld on appeal. Decades after the internment of Japanese Americans ended, Congress created the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians. The Commission's report stated there wasn't a military necessity for the internment. According to the report, the internment was an unjust product of racial prejudice, war hysteria, and leadership failures. Korematsu filed a petition for a writ of coram nobis to vacate his conviction, arguing that the conviction resulted from the government's misconduct. In support, Korematsu cited the report and government memorandums showing the government withheld evidence that internment wasn't necessary from the courts. The U.S. responded. Though the government didn't admit to wrongdoing or specifically oppose the petition, it moved the court to vacate Korematsu's conviction and dismiss the indictment. The judge decided Korematsu's petition and the government's motion to vacate.
Today's immigration. For what can be understood is that there has been a lot of deportation and the movement of immigration from many areas in the United States. There are about 47.8 million immigrants residing in the United States as of 2023, according to the latest American Community Survey from the U.S. Census Bureau. Following this, Donald Trump, during his recent presidency, invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1789. What is the Alien Enemies Act exactly? Under this law, it allows the president to detain or deport the natives or citizens of an enemy nation. It also states that this law permits a president to target these immigrants without a hearing and based only on their country of birth or citizenship.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
To combine these movements together, we can compare how it is known that first, the Japanese during the 1940s were broadly suspected of espionage and disloyalty just based on their ancestry. Even so, their race was equaled as a threat. Comparing it to modern time, many Latino and Central American populations are often linked rhetorically to gang violence and seen as a threat to the country, just for their ethnic identity associated with criminality. Also to add, the dehumanizing language that has been used on both situations, such as how the Japanese Americans were seen as the enemy race, and now immigrants today in the U.S. are described as animals, infestations, or criminal aliens, to be able to strip them from their rights and be able to facilitate harsh policies onto them. Knowing how the internet raised many questions about the balance between national security and civil liberties, there have been many debates on how this continues, in a way, going with the immigration policies, the detention centers, and even the refugee bans. Even with the knowledge of seeing how all these people during the internet went through, we can try to see and do more research on how immigration today is being dealt with. By seeing if the same things that happened then still occur in modern day, without it not having a lot of surface on the internet, immigration is still a popular and ongoing event that occurs in the United States. Understanding the political, economic, and even moral state of it, it can help us learn why this occurs still in the modern world, especially in the United States, and why there's an ongoing battle between the countries of the immigrants who live in the U.S. And to finish this off, I want to show a small video from Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security, that was posted on the U.S. Department of Homeland Security page, a video called Warning Domestic. Here is the video.
I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border, for deporting criminal illegal immigrants, and for putting America first. President Trump has a clear message for those that are in our country illegally. Leave now. If you don't, we will find you, and we will deport you. You will never return. For too long, weak politicians left our borders wide open. They flooded our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. They put American lives at risk. Well, those days are over. If you leave now, you may have an opportunity to return and enjoy our freedom and live the American dream. But understand this. Under President Trump, America's borders are closed to lawbreakers. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. Break it, and you'll find consequences. The choice is yours. America welcomes those who respect our laws, because a strong nation is a safe nation.
Thank you for watching. This is Carolina, and I hope you have learned so much more about immigration today. Thank you.